Now, I just did that as a cold reading. I hadn't even planned to look at this case today. It's kind of how the spirit works sometimes. But this case brings up two very important matters, just extemporaneously. One, regarding the fact that this current session of the Supreme Court of the United States is taking place by telephone. They specifically say in here that the court does not have the authority without convening in person. So the question then becomes one of what process did the Supreme Court of the United States undergo in determining that it had any validity in operating in capacity as the full court in any of the decisions that were announced, rendered, or provided to the public, ostensibly under the authority of the full court, while the court was remanded to issuing and discussions over telephone as opposed to in person on the site at the Supreme Court of the United States, as was discussed herein. But secondly, I personally have been subjected to a process that does not make any sense, not only in consideration of what would be determined to be a collegial relation either between the judges or the lawyers involved, but also in terms of understanding that the rules of the court are something that are supposed to provide a sense of authority and validity to the judicial branch itself, and are supposed to provide standards by which comportment is to be evaluated from all the other participants. There was nothing legitimate about what happened in the last 3 years when it comes to consideration of anything having to do with my efforts to go before the judicial branch of government, either in the state of Texas or through the federal district level, onto the Supreme Court of the United States. Every single effort I have made in absolute good faith to represent myself pro se or to try to obtain legal representation has been completely flouted, and instead there's been some sort of chicanery that has been engaged that has served to see to it that my good faith efforts at legal redress have instead been slandered and have been used for high crimes, the circumstances under which have yet to be determined or defined and have yet to be revealed. And in the meantime, just as it says right here, because after August 15th, 1973, the case will be moot. Why? Because there were deadlines, there were timelines. And if you refuse and intentionally interfere with somebody's capacity when they are able and legally able to acquire a means by which to do so, if you intentionally dispossess them of that, if you intentionally obstruct that, if you intentionally sabotage that, and certainly if you intentionally disable them and or murder them on the way there, then you have committed serious crimes in obstructing their rights to due process. Not to mention that if you just sit on a report or you just bury a report and you let that timeline lapse, then there's a whole host of other crimes. And every time you took a report from me and you opened a report number or a case and you opened a case number and you intentionally sabotaged the process to see if that cute little girl would play your game and jump through your hoops to pleasure you, you were outside of your jurisdiction. And insofar as you were impersonating a court official, then there are other crimes for which you need to account.